All right, so it's been a while since I've done a podcast, but here I am again with my friend,
Hi, I'm Vivi.
and we are going to talk about freelance. Basically, that's the main topic of today. For myself, I sort of just like wasn't trying to get into freelance actually. It's more like because I created videos on YouTube using that whiteboard software that people actually messaged me and said like, "Hey, can you help me create a video like this?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And then I
Oh,
just looked
wow.
Yeah, and then I just looked at how other people did it in terms of their pricing structure and whatnot. And I based mine off of those. And eventually, the more jobs that I did, the more I felt comfortable with adjusting prices according to like what I felt like I could do in terms of
hmm
quality and whatnot.
Wow. You kind of like inadvertently entered freelancing. How do you feel about doing it as a full-time job?
So I guess for me, I wouldn't want to do freelancing full time just because I like doing like YouTube stuff. I like making videos for myself, and I like just having self projects. Or like right now, I'm writing like a fan fiction for Avatar, and
Nice.
yeah, I'm gonna do some voiceover work for that. Projects like that, essentially, which I'm just like passionate about and just enjoy and do it for fun. That's where I like spending the majority of my time, as well as like playing piano and doing gymnastics and stuff like that. So I feel like I
Hmm.
like those things too much to commit to freelancing full time, which I've technically experienced before with that one job I talked about, which is the animation one. That thing took
Interesting.
forever.
I like that you put it that way, that you're making work for somebody else. Because I do get that. Like, you're doing all this stuff to build somebody else's business or whatever message they're trying to convey. But you're not making the work for yourself, for your own brand, your own image.
hmm
Damn, I never looked at it that way.
So I wanted to actually talk more about that, and it can sort of be a topic of one of the most challenging freelance jobs you've ever had, which for me was definitely the animation one.
Mm-hmm.
So it was essentially for this company that was doing something like that dealt with cryptocurrency, and they wanted
Okay.
me to make an advertisement video basically explaining their packages and what people can buy and stuff like that. And all of it was basically this 2D animation like thing that a lot of explainer animations do, but like so there's this program called Render Force that I used to use for like a period of time, like a few months, and they had those 2D animations and stuff. I might display it, but essentially what I had to do was create one from scratch. And I didn't really exactly know the process, but I had like an inkling of the process because I've worked with After Effects before, which is essentially all I used to create this video.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it ended up being around like a minute and 30 seconds of video around there. And it took me, I feel like it was around 60 to 80 hours to create.
Whoa. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I did that in the time span of 2 to 3 weeks.
Jeez.
At that time, I actually worked, I think, more than I do right now at the part-time work. And it was frustrating because I had to like stay up really late, sometimes until like 2 a.m., 3 a.m., like in multiple days in a row just to finish that project.
Damn.
And the person really loved it. Like he gave me a really nice testimonial. So
Oh man, that's great. I sure hope he did.
yeah. I mean, like it's a risk doing something that like you don't know that you can do for sure.
hmm
So, but like for me, I felt confident that I could figure it out, and I think that's an aspect of freelancing. I feel like a lot of people might be curious about because if your client asks you to do something that you're unsure you can do, like what do you say? You know?
Something that I did once when I wasn't sure if I could do the job or not, I said, I'll give it a try. It was like certain tasks for their website. And I said, if I can do this and this and this, then I'll charge you whatever. But if for whatever reason I can't figure out certain things, then I won't charge you for that.
That's a smart way to approach it.
So, yeah, I think it's always good to go out of your comfort zone because that's how you get better. That's how you learn new things.
Definitely. But after that, I felt like, man, I'm not gonna make another video like this.
No?
Just because I had I think there's something about me that's very strange. I always underestimate time. Like, I feel like I can do things faster than is actually possible.
Oh, wow. I feel like that's what clients do. They're like, oh, yeah, this will be simple, but they don't realize how long it takes. But you're the person actually doing it.
Yeah. I totally understand what you mean, because I've definitely had a client where was it not necessarily complaining, but was like concerned about like turnover time and stuff like that, because it was taking a bit longer. It was like a 10-minute video. So when you do a whiteboard video for 10 minutes, if you've ever done that, you will understand why it takes very, very long. It's because the program gets really slow at that amount of time, and also the render time for it takes a long time as well. Yeah, so that was just another job that was challenging as well, just because they didn't like clearly understand the process. So I had to explain it to them, like telling them like this is sort of how it goes, and this is why it's taking longer.
I feel like most creative jobs take so much longer than it looks. You know, even like with photography, people think, oh, you just like snap a button and that's it, you know, but it takes hours for maybe even just one picture.
Yeah, depends on like how edited it is.
Yeah. But in terms of my worst client experience or hardest, it's from what I can think of in my mind, it's not even work related, it's client related, like dealing with them. Sometimes you just get people that are hard to work with. And I came across a client that I met at a co-working space, and he was older, maybe in his 50s, and he was creepy.
Okay.
He would like flirt with me and say like really weird things like, oh, yeah, I usually date girls in their 20s, and talk about his dating life and stuff. And it made me feel so uncomfortable that honestly, you know, you shouldn't work with people like that. But at that time, I really needed money, so I had to put up with it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what you go through in the beginning stages when it's harder to turn down work. But once you have more power to say no, it's so much better.
Definitely. Here's a perspective that's interesting. I feel like this is more so if you're a potential client to someone. I feel like there's a way to write a good email. I've had like emails where they explain their project really, really well. And most of the time, if they do that, they end up working with me, or I feel more inclined to work with them versus like someone who just their writing style is very bland, or like they show no sense of character in their email. But that's just something I noticed from my own experience. I don't know if that's necessarily true for other freelancers, but like, how do they just email you for that? Or like, how do you communicate with clients?
Mostly email, but I've been going to a co-working space, so I've been able to talk to people in person. But yeah, I don't get as many internet clients as you do. But I have heard of people coming off as if they're a potential client, but they actually want like your advice for free, like free consulting. Have you ever experienced that?
I think I'd say so. Yeah, definitely.
Oh man, how did that go?
Well, I'm pretty open to giving advice. It's just like, I mean, if it's not like in-depth advice, like they just want to understand like a small part of the process, or like not even small, but just like how the process goes. You know, if it takes less than a minute to explain it, then I'll just do it. So.
But what if it takes like 30 minutes?
Oh, hell no. Like, I'm not going to spend that much time for someone who I don't know at all, and who is not paying me for a service, or who just seems like they want something from me that seems like freeloading essentially. So
trying to think of times I've gotten taken advantage of by clients. One time I gave my client a quote for a website, and he called me and he's like, hey, can you come visit? We need to talk. Or can you talk to me? And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll talk to you. And he he made me drive all the way to his office just so he could haggle for a lower price. And it's harder to say no in person, you know? So that was such a waste of time and money because I said yes. That was so dumb of me.
Yeah, I've definitely felt like it's way easier for someone to convince you of something on the phone versus email. So like if they're like actively talking to you and they're trying to lower certain prices or whatever, I definitely feel like more inclined to agree with them. Because there was a client where I made 4 videos for them, and each video was around like 7 to 8 minutes, I think, or maybe 10 minutes. I think each of them were 10 minutes, somewhere around there. And I did not enjoy making those videos at all. And also they underpaid me by a lot. For this client, he was asking for 4 YouTube videos, and each one he was going to just pay me $50. And
oh man.
Yeah. And that's like abysmally small compared to like my normal rate, which like depends on which period of time you're talking about. But more recently, I would be charging around 50 or even more for like 30 seconds of video. So I'm like, that's insane to ask of me that price. But like it was essentially a continuous thing where it was 4 videos a week. So that would be 200 a week, right? So a month it would be 800. So it sounds like good on paper, but when you actually get into the process of making those videos, it still wasn't worth it because it still took too much time. And
oh man.
And the topic itself wasn't interesting at all. They would give me basically sort of a title, and then I would have to make the rest. And I'm like, that's insane. That's insane to ask, just giving them literally a title and asking them to make like a video off of that. And then
that's like creative work too.
Exactly. It's like it's engaging pretty much all my skills as a creator on YouTube, but being like extremely underpaid to do it. So after those 4 videos, I was just like, nah, man, I ain't doing more. I was just going to say that was another pretty bad experience in terms of freelancing.
Oh, yeah. So I've always been torn between like hourly pricing versus flat pricing. And there have been cases where I've like given a flat price, and obviously, you know, it always ends up taking longer than you think it should. And I didn't calculate it, but I'm like, if you divide this into an hourly fee, then I'm probably getting like minimum wage if you think about it.
Exactly. I actually straight up told them like, dude, if I do the calculations for the amount of time it took for me to create these 4 videos, I'm getting below minimum wage.
Oh man.
So I was just like, nah, you know?
I think it's okay in the beginning to do jobs for free or at a very low price because you're still learning the ropes of, you know, how to manage the business part and figure out what you like.
How do you usually find clients? That's something I feel like a lot of people will ask.
I think my method is not the most common method because most of the ways that I've found people is that like they found me. So usually I've just been telling my friends and coworkers what I'm doing, and then they'll be like, oh, I know somebody that needs your help. And then yeah, it's basically word of mouth, and also going to the co-working space. I meet people there.
Nice. I mean, those are 2 solid methods. I feel like telling others what you're doing is like networking, just like your friends and family know that you have this certain skill and they tell other people who might need that as a service. Definitely is a valid way.
Yeah, but I think the downside to that is sometimes I end up working with friends, and that gets kind of complicated, you know, because that can potentially affect your friendship. So be careful when you're working with friends. Make sure your foundation is strong enough so that it doesn't get in the way of anything.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, for me, because like I didn't do that many jobs since it's only been a year and 6 months or so. I've only done about 12 or 13 jobs as a freelance.
That's a lot.
Yeah. What was your first freelance experience like? The first one ever?
Okay, so when I decided to go into freelancing, I was still working my full-time job, and I was planning on quitting and then starting my freelance thing. So I didn't know what I was doing. I had no plan yet. So I told my coworkers, what I was going to do. And this one coworker, this like old grumpy man who like was mean to me the first time we talked, and I was like really confused. So he was like challenging me by asking me questions like, "Oh, so how are you going to do this and this? How are people going to benefit from what you're doing?" And I was like, "Whoa." But I said what I could say, and then he ended up wanting to hire me, and I was like, "Wait, I thought you hated me."
So strange.
So I got my first client before I actually officially started freelancing, which kind of helped me like jump into it and forced me to learn faster. And yeah, he was really easy to work with. I still work with him to this day. And
Nice.
yeah, he's like, "Okay, I need a website. How much do you charge?" And I'm like, I don't know. I don't even know like what kind of website service I'm going to use. So I just like researched as much as I could and like came up with a random number I thought was reasonable. And yeah, it's pretty interesting, but I'm glad it happened.
Yeah, sounds like a good learning experience that was kind of strange at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. So how about you? What was your first experience? You kind of talked about it already, right?
I mean, I didn't really go into much detail in terms of like first experience. I talked about the most challenging one, and I talked about a couple that I didn't really like. But the first one I ever had, in terms of the first paid one, it was for a guy who was working with machine type thing that removes a certain like molecule from cork bottles that essentially makes things mold. So it was a very interesting experience. Like you learn some new things when you're freelancing for video, because like people want videos for a variety of things. So it was definitely a process, because I wasn't entirely sure how the process should go. So basically what I did was break down my own process and be like, which parts can the client fill in to make this easier, you know? Because like sometimes I feel like when I get scripts from clients, I feel like they're not the best. Like I can definitely help them fix it up and stuff. But for this client, it was more of a process of figuring out the storyboard and stuff like that, like what he wanted as the visuals. So we would go on like Skype or something and just like talk about it on Skype, trying to understand what each person wants. And then essentially from there, it's just like making a regular video. But it was interesting, and he was a nice guy. So there's nothing like that interesting about it. It's more so just like the first time I ever had to like figure out the process of working with someone else for those types of videos.
And what do you think you learned from that experience?
I feel like I learned a lot over like the time span of all the freelance work, but like just from that one, I think I learned how to set up payment process for sure, because that was the first time I ever needed that.
Oh man, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, and I also learned like, because if you remember, I was asking you about like contract stuff at one point.
Yeah.
So I was also learning how to figure that out as well, because I was like, you know, what if this guy doesn't pay me in the end? Or like trying to figure out, should he pay me a little bit first or something like that? Like how about the revision process? Like there's definitely a lot on the non-creative side that I had to figure out in the beginning. Because like making the video, I knew how to do that. So it was just like the other things.
I think when it comes to freelancing, there's two skills that you need to work on. You know, one is your craft, the thing that you're selling, and then the other side is the business side, the marketing, communicating, how to do an invoice, how to do bookkeeping and all that stuff.
Yeah, there's just a funny aside. Like at one point I had someone email me and stuff like that, and I took on the job, and how they paid me was very interesting. They paid me by giving me a lot of like free Chick-fil-A burgers or sandwiches.
Whoa. Okay.
So it's apparently yeah, they emailed me like coupon codes that essentially made the sandwiches like $0 in cost.
Wow. What a story. That's cool.
Yeah. It was interesting.
So did he say this up front, like, "Oh, I will give you $100 in money and 100 or like Chick-fil-A coupons"?
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow, that's so funny. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but the only reason I accepted it was because it was just interesting. That's it. Like there's no other real reason. Like if I look at it, this was actually the 10-minute video. So if I look at it, it wasn't worth it. But it makes for a funny story. So I just did it for that reason.
That makes it worth it. Now you have that story forever.
To close off, let's have a concluding piece of advice from the both of us. So like, what's one thing that you can offer to listeners or viewers, like as a final piece of advice, if they're interested in starting to freelance?
I think I would want to talk about how you'll get judgment from other people for going this route, because it's definitely not the conventional way to live, and people will judge you they'll judge you whenever you do something that's not normal. That's really hard to deal with, while working on your own thing. So I want to tell people to not let that affect you, because that's just going to make it harder. So stick on your own path and don't worry what other people are thinking.
That's a good one. Nice. My piece of advice is, if you want to do it for the long term, try to treat it as something similar to, I guess in my perspective, something similar to like YouTube, something similar to like a passion project. So essentially pick a skill for freelancing. We'll try a lot of different skills for freelancing, but pick a skill where you feel like you'll enjoy doing it a lot. Like for me, for instance, like I did whiteboard animations for a long time, but I didn't actually really like doing it. So eventually I'm not doing it anymore, but I found out that I like doing like voice work and stuff like that. So I'm going to move towards that. And it's something that I feel you should have in the back of your head. In the end, if you're doing something you don't like, why are you freelancing? Because like it's sort of like the same thing as having a job at that point, a job that you don't like. For me, a lot of what makes life interesting is that you're doing things that are interesting and that you like and enjoy. So that's my piece of advice from my experience.
Yes, make the most out of your life.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Okay, thank you for talking. Thank you for coming on.
Of course, thanks for having me.
So hope you guys enjoyed that. If you're interested in checking out VIVI'S blog, then I'll leave a link below. Later.
All right, bye.